Hello and welcome to Earth Echoes with Amber Fields. I am in the Granite Dells in the city of Prescott, Arizona, and yes, I'm lucky enough to live in a place where this is within the city limits, and that's thanks to a group called Save the Dells, which I was the chair of for a number of years, and we saved this area from development. And this is Eagle Peak right behind me. There are blackhawks that nest on that mountain, and it's hard to tell, but there's this cliff that's kind of in the foreground in front of Eagle Peak. That cliff is called the Resort Wall by local climbers because had the development gone through, there would have been a resort built in the valley bottom right there. So thankfully, it's open space now and not a resort and a bunch of homes. I am here to read another piece by Jason Gray titled The Question That Changed Everything. Many years ago, I was stopped by a stranger. He was an older man, but not merely old, disguised in a way a monarch might dress as a beggar to walk among his own people, unseen. His eyes carried a question older than his face. He looked at me and said, "If I told you that 50 generations ago your family came from another planet, would you believe me?" The question broke something open in me. For a moment, I stood, suspended between disbelief and recognition. It was not the kind of question meant to be answered with logic. It was a key, pressed into my hand, waiting to turn. I paused. I looked into his eyes, searching for a trick or a story, and what I saw there was not deception, but a quiet certainty. I felt the echo of a truth I had not yet spoken, and then I said, simply, yes. The memory of another world. Long before the word Earth existed, before we drew maps or carved borders, before even the species we call human had taken its present shape, we belonged to a different sky. It was not a fantasy. It was home. Our world was not unlike this one. It had oceans, forests, great crystalline mountains that sang when the wind moved through them. It was older, quieter, more resonant, a world where thought and matter braided together seamlessly. We were not bound to bodies in the way we are now. We wore form like a garment and shed it when we were done. Communication was direct, soul to soul, without the masks of language. But a great cycle came to an end. The star we circled dimmed, our planetary lattice fractured. A decision was made. We would not disappear. We would scatter. We would carry the seed of our world into another, and so Earth became our ark. The descent to this rock. We did not arrive here as invaders. We arrived as gardeners, as memory carriers. We came not to conquer, but to seed. The great myth of aliens colonizing Earth is a distortion of a deeper truth. We did not arrive here as something other. We arrived here as ourselves. 50 generations ago is not far in cosmic terms. It is yesterday's yesterday. In our cells, we still hum with the resonance of the old world. Every strand of DNA is a scroll of remembrance, a frequency code of the sky that once shaped us. Science calls most of this junk DNA because it does not understand its function, but it is not junk. It is an unplayed symphony waiting for the moment of return. This is why so many of us walk through life with the quiet ache of homesickness. Not for a country, not for a person, but for something we cannot name. We call it wanderlust, restlessness, depression, spiritual longing, but it is the memory of stars. We feel it when we look up at night and feel tears come for no reason. We feel it when music lifts us into a place we cannot explain. We feel it in dreams of flying over alien seas or walking beneath twin suns. We feel it in the sense of not belonging, of being different, of searching for a tribe that does not exist here. This is not imagination. It is the code of home echoing through the corridors of your cells. Who we really are. We are not earth-born creatures trying to become spiritual. We are star-born beings wearing earth bodies to complete a cycle. We are the living continuation of another world's story. We are fragments of a lost civilization disguised as a species. And the reason we do not remember is not because the memory is gone, but because the memory is too large to fit into a single waking mind. It leaks through our myths of Atlantis and Lemuria, in our sudden leaps of technology and art, in the way children draw spiral suns and strange cities without ever having seen them. The disguised old man who asked me the question was not trying to convince me of a theory. He was testing a memory. He was looking for those whose codes were waking up. The code in the blood. DNA is more than a biological blueprint. It is a frequency archive. It records not only your body, but your origin. It holds the song of the old world in dormant strands, waiting for resonance to unlock them. When you feel like an exile here, it is not a flaw. It is your signal. When you cannot adapt to a world obsessed with money, war, and power, it is because your code carries the memory of a society that knew another way of being. When you are drawn to the stars, to sacred geometry, to languages you have never learned, it is your cells remembering. This is why some of us awaken. This is why some of us write. We are the keepers of the silent archive. Why we came. We came here because Earth needed what we carried. We came because cycles of life and consciousness rise and fall like tides. We came because a time would come, this time, when the memory would begin to reassemble. When those who carry the codes would meet, speak, and write. When the disguised elders would test us with questions to see if we would remember. We came to plant a future inside the past. We came to scatter the seeds of a home world across 1,000 generations, knowing that one day those seeds would bloom again in human minds. We came to create a bridge, not from Earth to the stars, but from forgetting to remembrance. The great return. The feeling of not belonging is not a curse. It is an invitation. It is the soul pulling at the veil, whispering, "This is not all you are." When you stop treating your ache as a flaw and start treating it as a compass, you begin to remember. You begin to meet others whose eyes carry the same recognition. You begin to dream the old dreams. You begin to live not as an exile, but as an emissary. As more of us remember, the old world is reborn, not in the sky, but here. Through our hands, our art, our choices, our children. We are not waiting for rescue. We are the rescue. We are the continuation of a story that never ended. And the wind that moves through you now, the invisible hand that brought you to these words, is the same breath that once moved through the crystalline peaks of a world now gone. I never saw the old man again, but his question never left me. It was not really a question at all. It was a remembering. If I told you that 50 generations ago your family came from another planet, would you believe me? Perhaps you do not have to answer. Perhaps your very heart, reading these words, is the answer. The code of home is already waking in you, and that is why you are here. Jason Gray. That piece really reminds me of a time when I lived in southern New Hampshire, and I was working as a forester there, and I had to go into the city of Keene, New Hampshire to get some permits, and I was downtown going to City Hall, and I needed to use the restroom, and I'd already left City Hall, and so I was going over to the library. And I wasn't sure which entrance to use or where the bathroom was, and I have a small bladder, so it was kind of urgent. And as I was walking up the stairs, I was kind of hoping to, ask somebody who knew the library where the restroom was. And oddly enough, there was an old man there on the stairs, and he and our eyes met, and we just came together. And he started talking first, and he said, "I used to work for the government as a scientist, and there are wormholes, and wormholes really do exist, and the government knows this. And I came to know this as a scientist working for the government, and things are not as they seem, and we aren't being told everything about reality." And then he also said that the city of Keene is very haunted, and that there are a lot of ghosts there. And I looked at him, and I just didn't know quite what to say. And I don't remember if I did say anything in response to him. And I said, "Do you know where the bathroom is?" But that felt like a fated meeting, and I've always remembered it, and I think of it from time to time. And it also, Jason's reading also really reminds me of things I've been learning recently. A lot of it through Greg Braden, who wrote a book called Pure Human. I think that's the title of it. He was recently interviewed on Joe Rogan's show, and it's a really good interview that I recommend. But it's about our source, and our DNA indicates through chromosome number 2 that we are not we weren't created naturally as other animals on this planet were, because chromosome number 2 has 2 telomeres fused together in the center of the chromosome, which is not something that happens naturally in nature. It's not possible for DNA to combine through evolution in that way. And so it does hint at something. And I won't go into any more on that because it's just such a deep subject, but I am of the belief that there is a divine spark in each of us. And I like to think of myself as a divine spark experiencing myself or itself. And I think that there are powers that be that want to keep us from that realization. But it's just so interesting because, and like I said, this topic's just so deep. I would love to talk for hours if I could actually have a conversation with you. But there were these documents discovered in Egypt near a place called Nag Hammadi, and they were lost transcripts. And in them, they talk about how they're Gnostic texts, and they talk about how whatever created us put the spark of the Creator in us, the spark of Source in us that was even greater than them. And it's just such an interesting concept, and I don't claim to know what's true, and I don't have any rigid beliefs about these things, but I think it's a beautiful thing to be open to different ideas and talk about them, and that is a big part of why I do these recordings. So I appreciate you being here and listening and entertaining some of these ideas with me, and thank you so much, Jason, for your writing and inspiring these readings. I hope you have a beautiful day.